It certainly felt like a risk at the time, and I look back
Yeah.
and it seems obvious in hindsight, as other things do. But at the time, it felt like, I feel like I'm risking absolutely everything to my name.
So I'm Matthew Cox and I'm a business strategist. I've run and grown multiple businesses over the last 15 or so years. Join me on my journey with helping other entrepreneurs figure out what their goals are, how to set them and how to achieve them. Right, hello everybody, we've got our super guest today. I'm really excited to speak to this young lad. He has got so much ambition, he's got lots and lots of goals, but are his goals a little bit too lofty? Do we first of all need to sort out his peaks and troughs, his social media presence and so on, before he can get to those lofty heights that he so desires? So if that sounds like a really interesting podcast to you, stay tuned, have a listen, and let's see how we can give him some medicine and send him on his merry way so that he can actually become the true big entrepreneur that he so desires he wants to be. Right, welcome everybody. We're here today with Brandon from Diamond Pressure Cleaning, and we're going to have a little chat about his aspirational goals and the rest of it. And I'm quite excited to have a chat with Brandon. He's a young chap and he's got lots and lots of ambition. Wants to take over the world.
Absolutely.
So we'll get stuck in on that. So for the audience, tell us a little bit about your business and a kind of sort of elevator pitch style thing, like maybe from start to where you are now.
Yeah, cool. So business is Diamond Pressure Cleaning. We do sort of what we say on the tin. So generally speaking, pressure cleaning services. Now that's split between commercial and domestic. Up until about now, it's been generally speaking domestic. But I started off by I had a Corsa at the time, Vauxhall Corsa, and I started off basically by saving up a bit of money, selling that on, and borrowing a pressure cleaner and buying a slightly bigger car that could take the weight and take the equipment, and then just cracked on with doing sort of my friends and family driveways and went from there.
Yeah, and you've been going how long now?
So we started in January of 2023, so still a baby as far as business goes.
So just over around 18 months.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, I thought the other day I should probably check the date because I think we're about to get to the actual 18-month anniversary. But yeah, no, absolutely. About 18 months.
Oh, it's good. I think a lot of people underestimate that kind of like courage or ability to say like, I'll sell my big thing. I mean, I don't know about that Corsa, but it was probably quite a cool thing to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was. It certainly felt like a risk at the time, and I look back and it seems obvious in hindsight, as other things do. But at the time, it felt like, I feel like I'm risking absolutely everything to my name to go and clean someone's driveway. But yeah, it's as I say, in hindsight, it's easy to see that it's the right decision.
And what kind of led you up to that decision then? Like, obviously from kind of leaving school to...
Yeah, so I left school at 16. I decided not to go to A-levels. I knew I've always known since I was younger that I wanted to do business. But obviously I didn't know how to get into it or what to do first. So I left school at 16. Had the choice to go and do A-levels, but I decided otherwise and instead went to a company called Ludus, where I did telesales. Now, the thought process behind that was... as I said, I knew I wanted to do business, but I thought if I go to something where I do sales, it will get me used to getting rejected, which is obviously a huge part of any business endeavour. So I went off and did that. Then went to become a property manager, Home Jones Lets as a letting agent, and learn the sort of behind the scenes of actually running a business. So I learned it was only myself and the two directors when I first joined, and then one of the directors left, and it was like me sort of taking on fair role in the business. And that gave me the knowledge about how to run a business and just sort of the logistics. And it also made it a little bit more digestible. Obviously, seeing how the business is run, I said, actually, I feel like I could do something like this. And then it was just a case of, right, I know I want to start a business. What do I want to do? And it was just looking at what I had and sort of fitting the criteria. Okay, I've actually got a few thousand to the side that I can play with. What can I get with that, and how can I get my money back as quick as possible, etc. So it was sort of step by step, but that's how I went about starting.
So it's an interesting journey. A lot of people I meet who have gone into business don't really go down the college route or whatever. That's quite a common thing, really.
Well, it's either, I think when you hear about people that are doing really well in business, it's either they left school and cracked on at about 16, or they went and did sort of a financial or accounting. And it tends to be one of them. And I did think about going, I did quite well at maths, so I was debating to going down the economics route, etc. But I thought actually for myself, I just wanted to get sort of stuck in as soon as possible. So that was
cool.
That's the thought process.
So a question that it's kind of tied into that journey, if you like, but a question that I always ask the guests is, what were you like at school? So like young Brandon, so you're kind of 9 to 16, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose I've got to give an answer. If any of my friends see this, I've got to give the honest answer. So I was really, really nervous growing up in school, or nervous or introverted. I meet people now and I tell them that I was sort of really, really introverted, and a lot of people say they don't believe me because I'm quite extroverted now. When I was very, very young, I was extremely sort of to myself, kept in my own little bubble, and I suppose so. I started boxing at about 14 or 15 years old, about 14, 15 years old, and that totally changed me and gave me a bit of confidence. But if you ask me how I was at school, I was like the kid in the corner, just keeping to myself, head down type thing.
Very introvert.
Yeah, then. Absolutely. Okay.
Cool. Right, we'll get on to some of your bits here. So we've got some. We've been asking Brandon some questions, as we do with all of the guests. So we've covered kind of what your kind of business does and the rest of it, but presumably it's not just driveways, it's brickwork and the rest of it. And I think you do some gutter stuff as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we offer driveway cleaning and patio cleaning. Probably covers about 90% of what we do. Most of the calls I get are for exactly that. So with the patios, it's just a case of pressure cleaning them with chemicals, etc. And then with the driveways, it's pressure cleaning them and then also resanding them afterwards to fill in the gaps. But then we also do pretty much anything that can withstand the pressure of the pressure cleaner. So brickwork and render sometimes. The list goes on to, as I say, what can handle the pressure. We also do gutter cleaning and more recently roof cleaning as well. That was quite a big investment endeavour that we went down. But at the moment, as I say, it's about 90% just box standard service.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of your kind of 1 to 10 year goals clubbed together, so we've got, so far as my business goes, my goals are to grow the business to a self-sustaining state where I could hopefully sell it. I'll do that by either taking a member of staff on or a few members of staff on, increasing market spend, etc., or grow by acquisition and acquire a larger cleaning company. So we'll rewind back to the bit at the beginning of that, where you've got my goals are to grow the business to a self-sustaining state.
Yeah, in hindsight, I probably could have split that up to
the... that's fine. So talk about that. So at the moment, presumably it's yourself, and I think you'll...
So it's actually just myself. My brother has a window cleaning company, which ties in perfectly. Yeah. So obviously we can pass.
But he's a separate entity.
But he's a separate company. He started a company by himself.
Yeah.
At the moment, I'm pressure cleaning is just me, which I hope to change, but at the moment I'm sort of taking it step by step. As far as like the business goals, I'm at a bit of a weird stage where I'm debating going down the organic route of, as I say, sort of increased marketing. Yeah. At the moment, I'm sort of capped out anyway. Being it's summer, obviously this is when everyone thinks to get their driveways done, etc. So I'm fully capped out at the moment, but I do like the idea of going down the organic route. So taking on a member of staff, getting some more equipment, increasing the marketing spend, and just growing organically. But then there's also a part of me now that more recently I've been introduced to sort of the acquisition idea, and so potentially looking at something down that route. So the self-sustaining state is essentially I'd like to take on staff to the degree where I can step back off of the pressure washer and sort of manage the business development side.
I mean, I suppose my questions to you or my thoughts on it would be, it's correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like it's a fairly saturated market. Like you've got a fair few competitors and the rest of it. And therefore that will make it difficult for you to like really grow at scale. Yes, so I like the fact that you're already thinking like ahead, but what I'm thinking is that if you grew the business slightly organically to start with, so you got to that point where you've got like maybe a couple of members of staff and you're not on the tools all the time, and you can concentrate on the marketing strategy and all the rest of it, which we'll come on to a bit. I think then if you could build up your reserves to try and acquire companies or use creative ways of financing them, because the only true way to like really super scale any business is to try and get to a size where you're buying other businesses that have already got like a management team structure.
I don't want to buy a job. I don't want to buy a business that's small enough that I then have to run it. Absolutely.
You couldn't take the words out of my mouth easier. The thing is when you're small, you have to buy those jobs essentially because you'll be buying somebody and you'll be saying, oh, well, they've got 2 members of staff and the owner's going to retire. So I'm taking those 2 staff on and I'm going to have to manage them and the rest of it. So you probably will have to go through that pain if those opportunities exist, but you'll end up looking at companies that are probably not just doing jet washing. There'll be like a facilities management company where they're doing like Legionella testing as well as jet washing and cleaning and health and safety stuff. And the firm will grow into that kind of monster. And that is probably the kind of company that you'd end up acquiring because you go, right, there's a management structure and they're turning over, say, £1 million a year. They've got like, hire manager, office manager, and then the staff that do that. And there's a system in place. But they're probably doing more than just jet washing because it's a saturated market.
So one of the I've thought about that and about what sort of companies I want to take on. Now, personally, I'm not actually too stuck to the idea of a cleaning business. I've built this up. I know one of the questions was obviously referencing whether I've built myself a business or a job. And actually, at the moment, if I look at it objectively, I've definitely built myself a job. Now, I don't mind that because looking around, I've built in sort of the last 18 months something that can generate quite a bit of income. And opposed to going down the sort of job route, I've built up as I say, a bit of income fairly quickly. But now I'm not in a position that I'm tied to cleaning, and actually I look at different businesses and look at just businesses as a whole. But as far as acquiring, you're absolutely right. I can't stick to just jet washing. As far as what industry to go in, as I mentioned, I'm looking at window cleaning. That's quite a nice industry. Purely because it's regular and consistent income, and I can take on a business that will run itself. Essentially, I can take on a company that's got 3 or 4 window cleaning guys out in different vans, a few assets to do the sort of creative finance, as you mentioned.
I do think even those companies where there's like 3 or 4 guys doing window cleaning, they still need that kind of like it's still a job. You only really get to not a job when the business is of like a certain size where you've got like kind of a manager, like almost like if the business owner can go on holiday for 3 months and nothing really happens, maybe there's a light touch involvement or something like that. That's probably when you've built yourself a profitable enterprise, which you can then sell on or do whatever you wish to it. I think along that journey, we've gone through that as well, where like I'm buying businesses that's basically buying myself a job. But the beauty is as our core business has grown, those littler businesses have come in and they've just kind of become part of the system. So actually what they've done is they've created or contributed towards the overall growth of the firm to get it to that place where it's now not just a job. It's, it's a business. And I think it's really good that you're looking at the other avenues, but I think probably what you need to do is focus in on like the specific ones that you're going to aim for to start with, the ones that are most like your current services, like window cleaning and the rest of it. So that
I can understand it. Yeah, absolutely.
And you can get those dynamics, and there'll be a few issues along the way and so on. And we can talk about financing and stuff in a minute, but getting those businesses involved, and you'll think like, I've just got myself 3 jobs now because I've just bought these little micro businesses.
Exactly,
organic growth and those are there. The thing is you won't have the access to go and buy like a big facilities management company. That will come later, but that will really accelerate the growth. And I think, really, if you want to get to that kind of like $1 million+ turnover type businesses, you probably need to have lots of strings to your bow so that you can weather the peaks and troughs. So you mentioned that winter comes and people forget about jet washing.
My business is extremely seasonal. Absolutely.
But things like working with managing agents, such as ours and the rest of it, if good facilities management companies that will do things like Legionella testing, for instance, and maybe just turning up and doing cleaning of the communal hallways come the jetting, health and safety issues, handrails, painting lines on, all that kind of stuff, like for warehouses and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is really, a fair, really good market to be in. Companies like TSS, they're like a facilities management company. So I've been looking at the kind of services they've got themselves into over the years and really try and do that. Astound Facilities in Brighton, they do lots and lots of different, they do from jet washing all the way up to like cherry picker hire and all that sort of stuff, and minor maintenance repairs, so that you're like a much more rounded company. They do out of hours call outs, all that kind of stuff. So you'll then become like the go-to place for a lot of people that need like a sizable outfit. You're no longer in that space of like one man band jet washing on the driveway. You're now in like a proper commercial space now.
Well, that exactly what you said there is one of the things I've thought about, which is I'm more useful to big businesses if I have a lot of strings to my bow. So someone in your position, property manager, if I'm able to come along and say, well, look, we can offer 18 different services, it makes your calls a hell of a lot easier because you can push it to one person that you don't even have to think, oh, does this match their criteria? I'm sure they cover it. Whereas at the moment, I'm sure I'm only brought up in very specific scenarios where it's, we only need that pressure cleaning of that little patio or whatever it might be. As far as the commercial stuff, though, that's what I'm really focusing on this year, because, as I said, that actually in summer I do absolutely fine. I sort of max myself out. My business is seasonal, so through these months, I'm absolutely fine. But as soon as it does come to the golden months, I struggle a little bit more. And so I spent this year really trying to build up the commercial work, etc., and build up relationships with commercial companies so that I have a steady flow of income when it gets to those golden months. And obviously, I've mentioned to you as well in passing that I'm excited now. I'm just about to go into what I feel is my first really big commercial job. So cleaning a huge block of flats, and something like that is the perfect thing for later in the year in the winter months.
And I think that is really the route that I would be going down, is to try and get those commercial contracts. Because they often, even if you can get like the slightly bigger, the next one's up, they often have a remit to spend XYZ money. So if you find like the local facilities manager for someone like Yo Sushi or something like that, or I don't know, like the branch of co-ops or something like that, they will have like a remit to like, right, we need the car park has to be cleaned because that's what we have in the budget annually, regardless of whatever the time of year it is. It just has to be cleaned.
Absolutely.
And in that is cleaning out the drains as well, and also repairing the fence to the boundary because the neighbour keeps complaining that it's fallen over in a storm and we haven't done it. So they'll be looking at you and going, can you do all of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether you sub it out to people initially and then
you
make
can just manage, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Rather than taking people on initially. But as time grows, then you might want to take people on to have a better control over their kind of working practices and hours. But I think those sort of things are quite good if you can get yourself in the door.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in order to kind of get to the position where perhaps you're working on the business, not in it all the time, like on the tools and the rest of it. I did a video a few weeks ago on like a coffee shop owner and how they get to being like a business owner from just creating a job. I did like a little triangle, and I think a lot of people they go from like the business owner at the bottom, which is like, I've just started up a business, I'm happy, I'm serving coffee, that's my passion. And then they make it to the next step where they've got like 3 branches, and that's fine. But at that step, often I find a lot of people, they get stuck. They're almost like not earning a lot more than what their staff are earning. They're still having to go and open up the shop when Susan rings in ill. And they're still very much in the business, but they're branding themselves as like an entrepreneur. But you ask them, have you built a job or a business? And I'm like, but if you went on holiday.
When was the last time you went on holiday? It's the easiest question. Absolutely.
And a lot of people never make it up into that top like bit where you're truly like, an entrepreneur,
you feel comfortable
or working,
to leave the business. And absolutely.
Usually like 5% of people that make that on that journey make it up into that top bit.
5%?
Most, you'll find that almost in the UK, most people are probably, the amount of hours they're working versus what they get paid is probably less than minimum wage for a lot of business owners.
Because absolutely.
You've got to remember the figures are a bit skewed because you've got hundreds of thousands of small business owners who are like in your
like
current
myself.
position versus whatever. You think about the time you spend at networking events and jet washing and doing all that stuff. Some weeks you probably work in a 60-hour week.
Yeah, absolutely.
And probably earning like £8 an hour or something if you split that across that. Because you'll never find an employee, or very rarely where you'll find an employee that will go to your networking events and do all the work and then not say to you, can I go home early today?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they don't have that
I got
same
up at
mental.
5 o'clock this morning, actually.
Yeah, can I go home at 2?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're like, well, the job's not done yet. So they're gold dust if you do find those sort of people. And you also, mentally, you feel like, I should like reward you for that. I should let you go home early because it's not your business at the end of the day. So
absolutely.
You'll go through that emotional journey and so on. But yeah, most business owners, they don't make it past that kind of middle tier, really.
It would be. I mean, honestly, it'd be really easy for me to sort of stick in the role that I'm doing, and yes, take someone on, but just have them as the passenger seat in the van and then helping me along, rather than sort of creating a strategy to actually take myself out of it.
I think you have to be put some skin in the game at some point. As you did in the early days, really, where you put it on the line for you sold your car and got the first piece of equipment. You probably have to take somebody on and they might be paid more than you are, or you might feel like you're basically subsidising their wage because, you were earning decent money and now you've cut that in half because you've had to take someone on. But use that time wisely to grow the business. And I think definitely like yours, like at its grassroots level, like where it is now, like definitely I see you posting on like social media a lot and things like that on Facebook and that, but really keep that up. Like that is like a key to, I think, your presence, because you never know when people will go, I've seen like 12 of your posts, and then they'll call you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I like the kind of like before after things. I think they're very visual to understand. But yeah, try and do like different projects. Like if you're doing a roof, do it before and after. And then maybe if you're doing some jet washing, like maybe like actually film you and stuff, something for people to see.
I need to get more content because people always tell me how satisfying the pressure washing videos are, like the time lapses. And I need to get, I bought a GoPro, but haven't used it as of yet. I need to crack on with that.
But you can do like on your, I mean, I don't know, you have an iPhone, other phones available, but most of them have got like a time lapse thing. I mean, I've done that. Me and Danny moved this podcast studio around. You'll probably see on one of the clips, and we did a little time thing. That's only filmed on an iPhone. And I think those little videos and things are great. Go and join all of the local, like, I don't know, not selling pages, what are they called? The community type pages. The community type pages. Join all of those. Get your stuff on there. Sometimes you'll get someone say, it's just advertising, so you might get a little bit kicked out or whatever. But, put your luck. And try and grow the business that way. And it's also like, it is initially, the brand is a bit about you as well. So there's no harm in like having a self brand, if you like, especially as you grow. Because I'm going through that kind of transition now where it's like, it's Charles Cox is like the Matt Cox show, and the We Group is like me and Laura and all that kind of stuff. Where I'm trying to like kind of go, I'm my own entity, so that I'm not so reliant upon. I mean, I love the businesses and I'll always be involved because I feel like children that I've raised up to this level.
Absolutely.
As I go into the next sort of chapter of my life, it becomes imperative that people know there's a management structure in there and the rest of it. And that has allowed us to get much bigger clients. And because you've got a system there that's fallback, people in there, it's not reliant upon me. You'll go for a stage where you'll go and quote for a job, and then you'll send your staff and someone will ring you up and say, I thought it was you. I really liked you as a person, the rest of it. And you're like, it's not sustainable if I do it. But what I will guarantee is that person, I have trained them, loved them, nurtured them, and they will do your driveway just as well as I did. In fact, probably better because they do it day in, day out, whereas I don't do it anymore.
Absolutely. One of the biggest pivots for me with the marketing side of stuff was, for a very long time, I used to post in every Facebook group, the before and afters, etc. But I posted from Diamond Pressure Cleaning. And one of my biggest revelations recently was actually I started posting from my personal account on Facebook. And that got me a whole lot more traction, which was a little bit counterintuitive because, as I say, I want to get to a point where the business is self-sustaining and not tied to me. But for the moment, I have to sort of leverage, this is me, I'm a young person doing business, etc. People seem to like that. So at the moment, it's a bit counterintuitive, but a lot of my work is coming from personal outreach.
I think there was a study recently, I'll send you the link to it, about how much people trust more like a personal brand or a personal thing than they do a company. Like I think it was LinkedIn they did it on. I'll have a look later, but I'm sure it was LinkedIn, and they basically did a study saying like the posts that are on LinkedIn that are from their own account have much better engagement and conversion rates than just generic company posts, because people are buying into people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the old phrase, people buy from people and all that. And then they'll look at your profile on there and they'll see what you're doing and the rest of it. So, you know, they're all things to build up your credibility. You know, like your LinkedIn profiles and stuff. I would go away and work on those as well. If you want to apply for the podcast, please head over to matthewcox.biz and apply online. Thank you. Yeah, so LinkedIn wise, I would definitely be tuning up your profile there because as you grow, people will come to look at you as the person that they're dealing business with ultimately, especially if you're going to do acquisitions. The business owners will probably hunt you down. It's also a good way of finding staff as well. You know, when you eventually need like a manager or office staff or whatever you might grow to, you know, LinkedIn's a good way of keeping your recruitment costs down as well. Because you can like, kind of like search for them and then.
Absolutely. It's cheaper than Indeed, right?
Well, Indeed's not too bad, but recruitment fees are generally speaking about 10% of. I mean, it depends on how the market's going, but it's 10% of the going salary. That's quite common. So if you can try and, you know, find someone who's like facilities manager at such and such firm, and you're like, oh, they've been there for 5-6 years, their profile looks like maybe they're ready to move on. Ping them a message. There's no harm in doing that. And it's coming from you, not some generic.
Not diamond pressure clean. Absolutely.
Exactly,
No, my LinkedIn is definitely something I need to build because, as you say, it's just a bit of credibility, isn't it? And it's one of the first things that comes up, isn't it? I think when you search someone's name, it's ranked fairly highly, LinkedIn. I definitely need to get onto that. But as you say, it's not so crucial at the moment, but I need to get it done because as soon as I want to start looking at acquisitions or, as you say, approaching people about taking them on, well, if my last post was 5 years or 3 years ago, it doesn't look too great, does it?
Okay. So I think we've kind of covered your kind of like 1 to like 10-year goals.
So
we'll go on to what your 3 biggest challenges are really to achieving those. Obviously, you've put cash flow primarily, and I think we've kind of covered that with the kind of maybe just getting more strings to your bows to even out those peaks and troughs of the summer months and things like that. I think that's really where I would be going with it, and having a look to see what other firms that you want to aspire to be that big, like I mentioned, Astound Facilities and stuff like that. There'll be loads of firms like that, so have a look at them and be like, right, that's the kind of like area that I need to get to. What are they doing?
Absolutely.
And see how they're integrated into their businesses. But acquiring the knowledge to know when to take those steps, not to overreach, but always to be not too conservative and prohibit my growth. That's always a real tight rope to walk.
Absolutely. That's what I'm struggling with at the moment.
I suppose my personal gut feeling is always like, if I believed it would work, it kind of none of the rest of it mattered. I needed to believe in myself.
Gut feeling,
I don't know if you understand some of these terminologies as we go through, but you know, personal guarantee. So like, I've entered into a few of those. I try to avoid them if I can, but I've had to at some point to guarantee money that we're borrowing or guarantee property. You know, we're going to pay the mortgage or whatever. Sometimes it's a necessary evil to getting something over the line.
You have to.
But in my heart, I'm like, I know that will work, so it shouldn't really be a problem. And also, I've done the calculation. If it doesn't work, I know that another part of the business can support that.
Absolutely.
So that's a conservative way of looking at it, because I'm thinking, okay, fine, another bit of the business can support it if it goes wrong. So I've kind of like taken the risk out of it, but I know it's going to work. I have to believe in myself. If I go into this not even believing in myself, then I probably shouldn't really be doing this.
Absolutely.
if you hark back to your young self who said, I'll sell the Corsa and get the jet washing equipment, that is like a bold move, but you believed it was going to work. You did not, I mean, there must have been some doubt, but generally speaking, the overwhelming feeling is it's going to work. This has got to be better. It's going to bring me some money in rather than just cost me money. So that's an asset in its own right. Yeah. But then it's going to lead you into a life that you want to be in rather than just being in a job driving around in a Corsa. Having, so many people would rather choose the nice car than they would.
Yeah, it's just easy and safe, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
But acquisition wise, as you go on, I would look for the firms that are like similar sizes to yours that haven't figured out the peaks and troughs. And then you're like, I know how to fix that business.
Well, it's always easier to look at someone else's issues and solve them sometimes.
Especially when you've been through it
yourself. Yeah.
When you've gone through that journey of being like, right, I had those peaks and troughs problems, and what I did was I bolt these things on, and I can suck up that business and amalgamate in, and it's not going to become a job to me. Those are the kind of businesses that you'll look at early stages. And then as you get bigger, then you might need to acquire slightly larger firms that perhaps have got contracts in place. At that point, there are generally two ways of businesses being sold. There is either obviously a private, you can sell the shares of the business, so you can sell the whole limited company, and you buy that, warts and all and the rest of it, but you normally would have a personal guarantor against the previous owner. So if something comes out, the skeleton comes out the closet or something later on after the due diligence is done, you can then go back to them and say, look, you didn't tell me that you'd entered into this contract, or you promised all the staff they were going to get 10% of the profits. That's not in their contract. So you can go back to them under the personal guarantee. But that's the number one way. And then the other way is just to buy the assets. So you could buy the contracts off of them. You have to be a little careful with that to make sure the contracts can be transferred over to you without the customer saying, well, change of circumstances, business ownership, we're cancelling. So you need to do your due diligence on that. So it's asset or share purchase. So that's two different
That's something
things
that I really need to put some time into, because on the front end of it, I sort of want to take, it's funny because it's not the safe option. Actually, the safe option is the asset purchase, but I almost want to take I'll buy everything. I'll just buy the business. But actually it's, with the asset purchase, you can look sort of critically at each individual asset as well, can't you? You can
there are pros and cons to both. There's taxation implications for the person selling it as well.
Right.
So if they sell a whole business, it's a disposal, whereas if they sell, the individual assets, then they can do like an asset disposal. So it's often more tax efficient for them to get rid of the whole business than it is just the individual assets.
Did we just lose? I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I think I'm right in thinking that we just lost the entrepreneurs tax relief, where if you sell shares, it's 10%.
Yeah, so there are lots of different tax reliefs for it, but as a general rule, it's cheaper to sell, or currently in the current market, it's cheaper to sell the whole business than it is just the assets of it, because you don't get those reliefs. Obviously, we can't give tax advice, just for anybody that is watching this, and we're not accountant, so go and see your own accountant and make sure your structure is correct. So just a proviso there for anyone watching. But generally speaking, as it stands today, it is generally more tax efficient to sell the business as a whole than it is to sell the shares in it.
And it's also in their interest as well, generally speaking, isn't it?
It is, unless I've come across businesses where they only want to sell part of it. And it's been like they might have like a multidiscipline practice like what we're talking about with you, but someone might only want to sell the jet washing side of it, and they can't filter out their business very easily because it's been amalgamated with all of the rest of it, but they don't want to sell the main business, they just want to sell the contracts. So unless they have like a holding company and then loads and loads of individual companies, then they can sell them. So that's the way we've structured us, so that we could dispose of stuff tax efficiently. But the government have the right to change things and the rest of it. So only at the end of the journey do you know if you went quite the right way. And the other type is what they call management buyout. So so there's three. So you've got your shareholding, you've got your asset purchase, and then you have a management buyout. I mean, there are a few other options, but management buyout is normally when the business owner says, I'm retiring, do you guys want to buy me out? So to the management team, and they may all club together. They might use their own money, or they'll probably be able to go and get a loan from the bank, because the bank will be like, we love that. It's not because they're risk adverse generally. So they'll look at it and they'll go, well, you've got you can see all the trading history. This is doing well. You guys know what you're doing.
You've been running it.
Because the owner's not even involved. So all you're doing is borrowing some money, which is going to be funded by the profits to buy the owner out. So they're quite common management buyouts.
Right.
They do tend to lend themselves to much bigger firms where you've got that management structure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
If you end up with one or two key people running your firm, they probably don't have the entrepreneurialness between them to actually want to take on the risk. So if you've got like, say 6-7 people that take on the risk of a fairly sizable loan, but it's going to be funded because they're all going to have to enter into personal guarantees to the bank to pay that money. So that's quite a common way to go for bigger firms, and it is an exit strategy for a lot of owners. They go, right, I'm going to go out to the market, get an offer, and then I'll come back to the staff and say, look, this is the best offer and it's a tangible thing. If you want to match it, then let me know. That's quite popular. So I think we had a podcast guest on only a few weeks ago, Andrew Tutnott, if anybody wants to go back and listen to that one or watch that one. That is the process they've just gone through. So they've clubbed together and bought that. So, But
it gives a bit of confidence to the owner as well, because you're handing it not over to someone new, but some the guys that have been doing the core business anyway. So
you're always going to have that battle when you get to a certain size, and you're looking at businesses that are, maybe turning over $1 million or have got $1 million of EBITDA or something like that. Then you'll be looking at that and going, right, okay, that's the type of business I want to buy eventually. But also wary that the management team might also want to look at
be interested, absolutely.
There are important things to note really from that sort of point of view. So moving on from that, so I think we've kind of answered the question about not being too conservative but getting the right growth and the rest of it. I think you need to believe in yourself. You do need to make calculated decisions, but you've got to have a little bit of pat yourself on the back sometimes. Otherwise you'll never move forward. And, when you do get an acquisition, try and act with speed, but not like skipping the due diligence. So it's like, try and not let it go cold, because then people start thinking, oh, it's not even serious, or maybe, the staff start murmuring or whatever, and the rumours get out, and then it all starts going, and then it all falls through.
Absolutely.
But equally say you don't want to do it so quickly that you don't end up protecting yourself in the event of something going sour. So I think we kind of covered that bit of it, but but that balance is there, but you do have to believe in yourself. You really have to kind of be able to pat yourself on the back.
Absolutely. And take a bit of a brave stride as well, right? It's you build up these cash flow reserves, as you talk about, with the intention of making these moves, and then it gets to it and you're looking at the cash going, do I want to risk any of that? But as you say, you've got to sort of take a leap sometimes.
I'd always try, as long as it's fairly reasonable borrowing rates, I'd always try and use other people's money to fund things if you can, because you never know when you're going to need that cash for something else. Absolutely. Sometimes you need it for peaks and troughs in the business. Sometimes you need it to prove that you've got money behind you, just to borrow the money. And other times you might need it just because you're like, well, actually something else has come along almost straight away after and it has to be done cash. Like that, literally, if I don't do it within a week, then that's gone, that opportunity.
Dealing with administrators
and
or similar.
You haven't got the opportunity. Like someone might go into administration and go, right, I'm going to buy all of their equipment because it was all brand new and it's all fully funded, and I don't know, it's not even leased. So you then swoop in and buy it like a quarter of the price or something. You're going to need cash for that. So
absolutely.
You never know what's going to come around the corner, or the ability to quickly raise cash, at least if you haven't got the reserves in there. Okay, so I think we've kind of covered it. Like basically, we're looking at make sure that you have your kind of system in place so that you can see your risk and the rest of it when you're doing the acquisitions. I would probably continue to grow the business, but get it to a point where you can not be involved with it so much, so you can spend some time looking for these acquisitions.
Absolutely.
Do look at those other firms and have a look at their size and what they're doing as well. And I think that will help you, give you an indication of where you need to get to, and then how you're going to, what sort of businesses you can then single out and buy that are going to be nice bits of the jigsaw puzzle in order to get you there. And the marketing as well. I think it is going to be about you for a period of time and you as a person and the rest of it. But as time goes by, you will come away from that and it will become about the business.
Brand as such.
Especially when you go in that commercial space. So the acquisition side, they'll be buying into you. But from a commercial point of view, you won't be dealing with people on a one-to-one basis. It'll be staff at businesses and stuff like that. So they'll be buying into like you as the company.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, get that social presence up, look for those acquisitions, and I think that kind of hopefully gives you some insight as to kind of my medicine or what I would do if I was you.
Done it. So absolutely. Yeah.
It's not an easy journey, if I'm honest, like singling out those things, but I really think that you've got that drive and that entrepreneurialness inside you to do that. And I think you believe in yourself. You're young, so you can make mistakes. They're not going to be detrimental to the rest of your life as long as you don't do anything silly.
Don't take a massive personal guarantee. Yeah, absolutely.
But I think I think any banks will take you seriously and credible if you can demonstrate that you've got good cash flow. Yeah. You've maybe acquired other businesses, successfully amalgamate them into us. Like for us at the early stages, they wanted to see that I turn businesses round because they're not like bank loans, like you go into your bank manager and just say, can I borrow £10,000, please? Yeah. These are like, I'm borrowing this for a purpose. And then they're like, right, we want to have a look at your zero accounts or we want to have a look at your profit and loss for the last 4 months and see where you're at before we loan you this money. And we want to see the business that you last bought. How have you turned that round? Has it been successful? The integration into it. So it's much more like almost like a pitch to the banks,
absolutely. Please let me know.
To some degree, and some will get you and some won't.
Absolutely.
You'll find the ones that want to work with you and like you and time again will lend you money or will at least assist you. You know, they may part do stuff. So I can introduce you to some people when you're ready.
That'd be great. When I'm at the stage, it's absolutely
doing that. But in the first instance, I would definitely try and build up those reserves, cash flow, peaks and troughs, get rid of those, and look for the smaller firms to
take on some steady income. And absolutely.
I think that's kind of covered all of your points, but I don't know if there was anything else you had.
I tell you what I would like to say is well done for doing what you're doing. That whole podcast is absolutely brilliant. I love what you're doing. You're trying to educate people about business. And I think it can be really daunting from the outside looking in about starting business, but actually sometimes it's very just step by step, and you need someone to just give you the information. And I think what you're doing is brilliant.
And I think all of us are learning. You know, I go to events and I go on other people's podcasts and I talk to other business owners that have got much bigger businesses than us, because I think that everybody can learn. There's nobody out there that can't have an open conversation and learn something new at any point. And I just like sharing it. And absolutely. People say I'm not very brutal and honest sometimes in the podcast, but I'm like, I think that, all I can do is say, like, what would I do if I was in your shoes? And I'm not sure if you're going down the right path with that. Absolutely. Like some people come in here and say, oh, I want to do X, Y, Z. And I'm like, I don't know if that's really what I would do. It's only what I would do. But personally, I'm worried that if you do that, it's going to end in tears.
Absolutely.
So, well, thank you for that. But it's been lovely having you on. And if people want to get hold of you, how do they do that?
So at the moment, it's just social. So Done Brush Clean on Instagram and Done Brush Clean on Facebook. But hopefully by the time this goes out, I've got a website in process, so hopefully that should be out. In which case it'll be donebrushclean.com. And also on LinkedIn, so Brandon Kilvert Taylor. And in between the release of this podcast, I shall do some bits on LinkedIn to build my credibility to get myself.
You go off and do that.
Absolutely.
But one thing that's really good on LinkedIn that I haven't touched on is they've just started this thing called, well, I don't know if they just started it, but it's become a bit more popular. Recommendations. So your profile actually has it's like a Google review of you. So you can give it to people, or you can ask for someone to give you a review. And I think that does you really well on your profile. So maybe if you can get a few clients to give you kind of reviews and stuff, and maybe suppliers that you work with and stuff like that, that will help your profile.
Well, funnily enough, I have got it on my list of my sort of to-do list is to put some time towards LinkedIn. And there's a few people that sort of post videos or make content about how to sort of supercharge it and get yourself to a credible state straight away. But that's brilliant. I will, I'll make an effort to get some people to do that, because that'll look really good.
Brilliant. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on.
It's been a pleasure being here. Thank you.
I really hope that you reach those lofty heights that you want to go for. I think you have all of the serial entrepreneur marks, if you like. I'm sure you'll get there. I have every confidence. Just make sure you do it in a kind of sustainable way. Really.
Absolutely. Don't overreach, as I said. It'll be easy. But yeah, thank you very, very much. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure coming. So thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Take care. Right, I really hope you enjoyed today's audio podcast, and it's been really, really great having today's guest on, and I hope that you can all pick up some really amazing tips and hints, some structures to their businesses and the rest of it, and really what I would do if I was in their shoes. If you want to come on the audio podcast, what you need to do is head over to our website, www.matthewcox.biz. That's Matthew with 2 T's. There's a pre-filled out form for you on there. Fill that in. That goes off. We'll get you on the podcast. It's filmed for YouTube, and then it also goes on Apple, Spotify, all those kind of streaming services. It's free of charge. Just come on the show, have a chat, open and frank with me, and then you can use all those bits for your own social medias if you want to, or whatever. And it goes, as I say, on audio and on YouTube. So if you want to apply for the podcast, please head over to matthewcox.biz and apply online. Thank you.